RENA RUSTY KANOKOGI, 1935 to 2009. The street-fighting, black belt-winning, Jewish-American judo luminary. If I told you Rena spent the majority of her childhood at a theme park, she could go on all the rides for free and eat unlimited hot dogs, you might think it sounds as Kid Cloud 9 as Richie Rich's pad. Although factual, her home in Coney Island, Brooklyn, minutes away from the amusements of the boardwalk, was in no way as idyllic as it sounds. When Rena wasn't being ignored by her parents, she was mistreated by them, forever becoming the unintentional victim of objects being violently flung around the kitchen mid-argument. She ate hot dogs because that's all her opiate-addicted mother, who sold them on the street, could manage for her. Her dad tended a bar, when he showed up for his shifts, and blew anything he did make on the GGs. If Rena reached out to them, she would be told, "Go bang your head against the wall." She learned to do it until it bled. Rena's was a street education. She didn't expect anything for nothing, and that tough lesson in survival would become her secret weapon. Deadlier than the fake blood-covered bayonet she used to strap to her leg for protection during those days. By the time she was 7 years old, Rena had already been sent out to wheel and deal around Coney Island. She peeled potatoes for French fry vendors, assisted drivers at parking lots, sold confetti during Mardi Gras and ice water for 5 cents a cup at bus stops. When she wasn't giving it chutzpah on the hustle, she would socialise with anyone that gave her the time of day, namely the freak show performers, such as Milo the Mule-Faced Boy, the Mermaid, or Alberta, the hermaphrodite. The world might have viewed these people as abnormal, but to Rena, they were family. Their care and protection was her normal, and the best she'd known, but she still hankered after her mother's love. By the time Rena was a teenager, she was rolling deep with an all-girls street gang she had formed, known as the Apaches. They wore green and black satin jackets, bell-bottom pants, and smeared their skin with Vaseline to avoid getting roughed up. They were the slipperiest gang on the block. Rena learned that if she came home with a serious wound, her mother would pay her attention, but it was soon less about those cuddles and more about the tussles. Rena wanted to fight so badly, she'd take on a candy floss along the pier. She'd even break away from her girls when they didn't want to squad up and would take on rival gangs single-handedly. Rena felt a churning, burning rage inside her that was being misplaced, but she had no other outlet. She wanted to lift weights at the local YMCA, but girls weren't allowed. So she got her fix in anything physical, aggressive, anything she could attack and win. Even if she was rollerblading, she would imagine that she was in a roller derby and plough anyone down that got in her way. Rena's hoodluming was expert and always on point. There was nothing rusty about her street persona, apart from her nickname, Rusty, which she acquired after a local stray dog. There's no further information on this enticing tidbit, which is, as far as I'm concerned, a multisensory violation. In 1955, Rena was taught a judo move by a friend, and instantly felt that light bulb moment when the heavens throw open their golden gates and the angels croon sweetly. Unbeknown to Rena, she was about to enter into a battlefield that was a minefield of myths for women. Judo was a quiz show wrong answer buzzer sound for girls, as the world was certain all of that full-on contact would encourage them to be gay, because choking, arm-locking and body slamming are well-known lesbian mating calls. There were also serious concerns that arduous exercise might displace a woman's uterus. Their ovaries could fold up or their breasts spin off like Catherine wheels. Nobody seemed to be sweating about the male reproductive organs which were jangling about on the outside. Rena was a girl, and a Jewish girl at that, so she was surmised as weak. Try and explain that to the perv Rena practiced her ouchie Gary throw-on when he exposed himself to her on the subway, or the trash collectors who swooed her before their neat pile of garbage was scattered by her dashy Hari foot sweep. In judo, Rena had found her focus, but her recently discovered discipline wasn't allowed outside of her neighbourhood classes. By 1959, she was championship ready, but outlawed from competitions because of her risky female bits. She was the best in her team, and it would be poppycock if she didn't compete, So she registered at the YMCA Championships in New York as Rusty Stewart. Her hair was already short, but she cut it shorter. She taped down her gunpowder bosoms with bandages and put a T-shirt under her judo uniform. Tactically, it would have been A-OK if Rusty had drawn with her opponent in this particular match, but she didn't know what it meant to tie. The second the players had bowed and touched, RENA threw her competitor. With the other club on the floor, RENA and her team were on the ceiling. Thanks to Rusty, they'd all be heading home with medals, but when it came time to award hers, the officials pulled RENA aside. They had espied the fact that she was Adam's appleless and was told to give up her medal or forgo the entire teams. As she handed back her prize to the judges, she was calm, but her insides were crying. This can never happen to another female again. She didn't know how, she didn't know when, but she knew she had to spark that stick of dynamite. Out of options in the US, in 1962, RENA moved to Tokyo, the spiritual home of judo, to train at the Kodokan School. Here, women have been welcomed in judo for over 40 years, but only ever separately from the men. Upon arrival, and after pulverising her teammates, who had been taught women's judo, which natch meant nothing to RENA, she became the first woman to be invited by the masters to train in the main dojo with the men. RENA was respected by them, and to her that didn't mean how they treated her, but how they played her, like an equal. She practiced for 9 hours a day and was promoted to second dan, a black belt ranking. Later, she would become the first woman to be promoted to the rank of 7th. She sucked up the training, winning every match and even a husband. The Japanese black belt Ryohei Kanokogi. There was still some discrimination against interracial marriage at this time too. RENA was shoulder-barging the stereotypes on all sides. When they returned to the States together, they set up the Kyushu Dojo Community Service Center for Judo and devoted their energies to promoting the sport to the kids and the still competition-deprived women and girls. RENA was on the warpath to shove that TNT up the backsides of the sports bosses, but they threw in every obstacle they could to stop her. For 9 months, she was on the phone more than a telemarketing robot. She fundraised, lobbied officials, stormed offices, and even remortgaged her house to pay for the first Women's Judo World Championships, held at Madison Square Garden in 1980. Despite being a grand slam and bringing double the number of people to the sport, the judo governing body saw RENA rolling, and they were hating. They wanted her gone, and even asked her husband to fulfill his duty and gag her. But these male chauvinist piglets had messed with the wrong woman. RENA was just getting started. In 1984, the International Olympics Committee decided that women's judo was not going to be allowed in the 1988 Olympics, and in my favourite Gender Rebels quote, RENA said she almost began to hear the music to Jaws in my head. Da-da, 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 da-da. What should I do? Take one of the IOC members and put him in an arm lock? Go on hunger strike? For the first time in my life, I was thinking terrorist thoughts. Then it hit me. Sue the bastards. Get 'em. And funnily enough, a few days after a sex discrimination complaint was filed and RENA's shark bite filled the papers, the doors whooshed open to funding for women in judo. After fighting for more than 2 decades, 24 years after men's judo was recognised, RENA was the coach and now widely considered mother of judo, after bringing her women's team to the 1988 Summer Games. The awards and victories kept on coming. She rightly has a place in the International Women's Sports Hall of Fame, Japan's highest civilian honour, the Order of the Rising Sun, which saw her made a Kanokogi sensei. And in 2009, 50 years after it was taken away from her, Rusty got that gold medal back from the New York State YMCA. She fought like loco for her sport and for equal opportunities for women and girls. For RENA, judo gave her my purpose, direction, my family, my life. RENA Rusty Kanokogi gave us life, and for that we should offer her the ultimate judo demonstration of respect and humility, the deepest bow.